Hi, everyone, and welcome to the presentation for Policies of Misconduct, a content analysis of codes of conduct for online multiplayer games for Kai Play. The authors are, as it says there, Thomas Grace, Ian Larson, and Professor Katie Salen. Let me just appear. Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Thomas, and I'll be walking us through this sort of video presentation. And yeah, with that, we can get started. Let me just make myself small so I don't interrupt presentation. Great. Okay, so what we did in the study is that we searched the websites of 60 popular online multiplayer games to try and find their codes of conduct, and then we conducted a thematic content analysis on those codes of conduct. We performed a click test to sort of locate those codes of conduct, and that was sort of to address the first question there, which is where are the codes of conduct located on popular multiplayer games? And then sort of the second research question, that was where what content is actually being communicated in the codes of conduct of popular multiplayer games. And I'm going to sort of give this is meant to be an 8-minute talk, so I'm going to try and keep it very short and very sort of brief and cover as much as I can. And then I highly encourage you to go look at the paper because there's a lot more details in the paper on some of the stuff that I'm talking about. So if something seems unclear here, there's more than likely more details in the paper because I've tried to keep them as close as they possibly can. So just sort of to start us off, what exactly is a code of conduct? And for those watching the video, I encourage, or at least having control of the video, I encourage you to pause the video now and just maybe read through this. This was a code of conduct that I noticed after doing the study at a sort of shopping mall. And so this is something that we actually engage with every single day. For those of you that don't think that you have anything to do with codes of conduct, you actually do, as you can see up here. This is one that was taken directly from a shopping mall. But we were more interested in our study on codes of conduct to do with online multiplayer games. And particularly, we were interested in these codes of conduct because there are a lot of challenges when it comes to sort of virtual spaces and online games. There are lots more people entering these spaces, especially now with sort of these conversations of the metaverse and virtual worlds. There are going to be even more people heading into these online and virtual worlds. So it's important to sort of have a code of conduct to sort of explain and set expectations for users. So we were sort of curious then, what do these codes of conduct even look like? We were sort of trying to explore the space, and we couldn't even find anything that suggested what these codes of conduct look like. So we decided to sort of look for ourselves and find them. And as sort of, so their community managers are often under-resourced in sort of gaming companies, and that is sort of, some research has sort of shown that. And then there's also this opportunity to use codes of conduct for social onboarding of new members. So the sort of contributions of this paper is that it's going to hopefully lead to improving the understanding of sort of where the codes of conduct are. And I guess sort of a bit of a spoiler is that there are a lot of websites that do not have any sort of code of conduct available at all, or at least a standalone document. And then we're also sort of going to build on sort of existing work around legal facing documentation, and hopefully to support community managers in gaming companies to design codes of conduct as well, and sort of do one that the players can understand while engaging with it. So I'm not going to go through these in too much detail because, again, this is all in the paper, but we looked at some of the related works on just code of conducts more generally and how they were used as a governance document, especially as sort of an ethical standard for interacting with other people and sort of laying out those sort of standards in terms of discouraging bad behaviors, supporting onboarding, and encouraging more inclusive and diverse contexts. We looked at sort of some examples in workplaces, open source software projects, and game jams. And then sort of the related work for codes of conduct and multiplayer games, there hasn't been a humongous amount of work. As I said, we were looking for some examples of how to sort of think about codes of conduct, and we did come across some stuff where it sort of spoke about them being sort of more legal documents and sort of really just there to sort of help punish players as opposed to setting values and expectations for a particular virtual space. There are also some guidelines that we came across in writing and sort of how to convey a code of conduct. So you can sort of see up on the side right above me, that is from the Disruption and Harms framework from the ADL. Over here is the sort of from the Any Key Alliance, and they sort of list, as you can see, 4 main sort of things. And down here at the bottom, I think is one from ethicalgames.org, which particularly says that online multiplayer games should have a code of conduct. Players should be aware of it, should commit to it, and sort of the actual publishers should know and enforce what it says on those codes of conduct and communicate that effectively with the players. So for our sort of study, what we did is we sort of at least had a sort of, or at least a sampling strategy. The way we found our games is we went to a whole bunch of popular game stores, places like Steam and those places, and we basically assembled a list of 60 games. We then went to each of the websites for each of those 60 games, and we did a click test. So we started on the home page, and we basically went through a structured process to try and locate the code of conduct, with navigating through the site, looking at sort of the community sections, looking at the home page, the bottom of the home page, and we documented that process. And then once we found the code of conduct, we did content analysis using a 2-cycle coding method, consisting of both initial conceptual codes for the first round and sort of more pattern coding and clustering for the second round. This is just an example of the Miro board that we used, and sort of it was myself and my co-authors. This Miro board is a great tool for collaboration around clustering and coding. And you can see here are examples of our sort of coding process and the sort of stages that we went through to code all the codes of conduct. And now on to the actual findings. And as I said, all of this is in the paper, so I encourage you to go and look at the paper as well. I'm sort of, this is a bit rushed for the amount of stuff that is coming here, but again, it is an 8-minute time limit that we are dealing with. But you can see here that I think one of the most important things to note is that, as it says up here, over half of the games did not have a standalone code of conduct. So if you look at the games that had them included either in the terms of service, the end user license agreement, or they were not found, so of these, this is over half. If you sort of add these up together, it sort of goes over, or just over half of the games did not have them at all. And then you can see that sort of some of the others had them on the publisher's website. They had them in the forums. Only 8 of the websites had them directly linked on the homepage. And then sort of our findings, we found sort of 5 main areas or themes after our coding, which we got company values, where those were sort of focused around gameplay values and social values. We also sort of found expectations of players and how the companies expected the players to behave. And we saw those in gameplay, respect, community interaction, and personal responsibility. We noticed sort of the bad behaviors and rules, and these were sort of specific rules that were either game-related or actions against others or individual sharing-related rules. And then we sort of saw moderation and structures of the document, things like reporting procedures and that sort of stuff. So then sort of, as I've sort of mentioned a few times throughout the presentation, is where are the codes of conduct located on popular games, is that there are a lot of them that are not there and we just can't find them. And that sort of what content is then being communicated in these codes of conduct, that is also something that it's very vague. Sort of, we'll see at the end. I'll do a very quick highlight, given that I'm already over time, of these codes of conduct and what they look like. And then we developed a 5-step process for ensuring a value sort of focused code of conduct, which we've included in the paper. This is based off our analysis of some of the sort of more well put together codes of conduct. And this is just going to help. Again, it's a lot more detailed in the paper, but hopefully this is with the objective to help people put together codes of conduct that are easily to read and accessible and also steeped in the values of the game, not sort of just randomly out there to punish players. And then, as I said, sort of future works is sort of hopefully people and companies can use this to sort of build on and validate and sort of test our framework. And that's obviously the main goal there. And yeah, then let's just hopefully look at some examples before we hit the 10-minute mark. Oh yeah, I just swapped sort of, this is the Sea of Thieves code of conduct. I'm not going to go through all 3 of the codes of conduct because we don't have time, given that we're going to hit up to 10 minutes. So that's already over time. But I just wanted to sort of point out that this is one of the better examples that we saw. You can sort of see here how sort of Sea of Thieves is sort of using very sort of engaging language. It's player focused, sort of being respectful, welcoming to new players, and sort of encourages people to read this and is accessible. And if you look at sort of the total sort of opposite end of the scale is one like this, which is the Elder Scrolls Online. And you can see here it is literally written like a legal contract. And sort of here we've got sort of this code of conduct is effective as this date. If you read this, you'll see that it's a very legal sort of language. And those were sort of the two extremes, at least in the structure that we found, and then sort of even the focus and the value-orientated approach. But yeah, I encourage you to go and read the paper. We have a lot more discussion and interesting sort of information in the paper. And yeah, please reach out to any of us if you want to talk more about codes of conduct or sort of just multiplayer and sort of virtual conduct in general. We'd be super interested to hear from you. And thanks for watching.